Hi, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to another fantastic Power to Fly Chat and Learn event. My name is Meg Alexander. I'm part of Power to Fly's hosting team, and I'm super excited to be hosting you for today's fireside chat with Isabel from Meta. Now, before we dive into that, I just want to go over some real quick housekeeping items. Probably important if maybe you haven't joined us for a live or for one of our virtual chats in a while, or maybe if this is your first time joining us for an event. If so, welcome to the Power to Fly community. So one thing you should know is that these events are all about you. They're about our audience, and we want to make sure that y'all have as much ability to participate as you would like. So you can do that in a couple different ways. You can always turn your cameras on if you would like to share your smiling, maskless faces with us safely today. Now, you will be asked to stay on mute until for the duration of today's event. However, you will be able to ask questions or add comments by sending those into the Zoom chat. It's going to be in that big group chat. It should be a feature you can find in your Zoom toolbar. Now, if you do come off mute at any point during today's session, you will show up on the recording of today's event. So if you have any kind of privacy concerns or anything like that, no worries, just make sure you don't come off mute and you will be good to go. Now, like I said, today's session is being recorded, and what that means for all of you is you get to sit back and enjoy yourselves. You don't have to take notes. You don't have to worry about, missing list item 2 of 5 or that last resource that somebody called out. You can always come back and review these recordings later. Now, the way you can do that, there's going to be a couple different ways. Everybody that registered for this session is going to get an email from Power to Fly in about 1 to 2 business days, and that will give you a rewatch link to where you can check out this video on our website. You'll also be able to find it posted to our YouTube channel in the coming days as well. Now, if you do want to, you hear something that's so amazing today from Isabel that it's just like mind-blowing, like you cannot wait to share this tip or this information with a coworker or a friend or relative, you don't have to wait. Just know that you can always head over to our website. We've got our whole archive of recorded chats are all stored there. You can watch them for free, share them. Same thing goes for our YouTube channel. Now, I'll be sharing links for all of this with y'all in the chat thread in just a moment. But the last thing that I want to highlight for all of you is that you are welcome and encouraged to dive on into that group chat. Feel free to network with the people who came as well as you. You are very much encouraged to ask questions, anything you've got that you want to know. There's also a recruiter from Meta who's hanging out in the chat to answer any recruiting specific questions you might have. If you have any questions that you would like to ask the speaker or, context to give us on your session or on your question or anything else, like I said, please feel free to put that in the group chat. If you have a question or a comment that you would like me to raise, but you'd like to stay anonymous, not a problem at all. Just send it directly to me in a DM as opposed to sending it to everyone. You can find my name, Meg Alexander, on the drop-down menu in your Zoom toolbar. Now, today, our speaker today is here on behalf of Meta. Now, obviously, this is one of the largest companies in the world, probably needs no introduction for many of you. But one thing I want to highlight is their Power to Fly page. So I'll share a link to this with you in just a moment here. But what you're looking at is what Meta's company page looks like on powertofly.com. Now, when you go to this page, you can get all kinds of information about Meta, what the company culture is like. You can check out their insights library. That's going to have a bunch of past events that they have partnered on with us, as well as searching their open roles right from our platform where you can apply as well. Now, if you are listening today and you're interested in working with Meta, but maybe there's nothing really that is posted in their open roles right now that speaks to you, or maybe you are interested in Meta but not currently job seeking. What I recommend is at the top right-hand corner of this page, there's going to be a big pink button that says follow. If you click that, it's going to put you on Meta's follow network, and it does some great things for you, but bottom line is it acts like your friend at Meta. It's going to let Meta know that you are interested in working with them even before you fill out an application, but it's also going to put you on Meta's follower list. And that means that we are going to let you know when they post new roles. So great way to take advantage of a free service that we provide through our platform, and hopefully a way to sort of simplify your job search a little bit for you. So definitely check that out, avail yourself of those features. And if you've got any questions about any of that, please feel free to send it along in the group chat. Now, I'm very, very, very excited to introduce you to our guest speaker today. Isabel Kloumann founded the Responsible AI Fairness team in 2018 and supports fairness engineering and AI research. Now, Isabel's team's mission is to ensure Meta AI products work well for all user groups and do not amplify societal biases. Now, Isabel's background is in applied math, machine learning, and networking science. She completed her PhD in applied math at Cornell University, working with John Kleinberg and Stephen Strogatz, and her undergraduate degree was from the University of Vermont in physics and math. Isabel lives in Burlington, Vermont with her husband and 3 children, ages 4 and under. So clearly, Isabel, you have just hours of free time at your disposal and a very quiet workspace, I'm guessing.
That's right. Yeah, I can hear my husband in the other room and my baby downstairs, and I know my 2 other ones are off playing with their grandparents right now. So yeah, it's a wild but lovely time.
I love it. If my parent friends are any indication, you don't have to really be worried unless it's quiet, right? It's
Yes.
fine when there's a low grade
Yes. When
noise, but
when everyone's
silence.
out and I can't hear little pitter patters, it's very unnerving.
Right? Yes. All right. Isabel, it's really great to welcome you to the stage today. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience before we dive into questions?
I'm really excited for the chat today. I think I really appreciate the questions that everyone submitted. It was really fun to read through them all. I think we'll get to cover a fraction of them. And I hope that the scope is enough. I just want to offer, that if we don't cover something that people were dying to hear about, I'm very open to connecting. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can get my contact information there. So I would be happy to have any follow-ups or chat more with people. Thanks so much for asking all the questions.
Hey, thank you to our audience for submitting them. Y'all let me know what you want to know, and that's how I, have something to do on this event. So thank you all for that. All right, so before we dive into the questions today, I just want to highlight some of the main themes for today's conversation. So we're going to talk about how Meta is creating responsible AI. We're going to discuss how their team is working to develop AI that really works for all. And we're going to discuss some of the ways that Meta is ensuring that inclusivity, including diagnostic tools. Now, I'm really excited to dive in here. So let me stop sharing my screen, and that way I can spotlight our amazing speaker today. There we go. So I want to dive in on one of the questions that we were asked first that I thought was truly pretty interesting, was what is Meta's vision for responsible AI? Now, I think this is kind of a term that can mean different things to different people. So let's expand on what that means at Meta.
Absolutely. So I'll first highlight the profound role of AI across all of our products. AI is a really exciting emerging technology that we use to connect data to inform decisions and is used to help us rank relevant content for people, serve relevant ads, as well as engage in content moderation and our policy enforcement. So we're really excited about the many different ways in which we currently use AI and for its future potential in helping us continue to build relevant and exciting products. As with any new emerging technology, there are many important questions about what the appropriate guardrails are, what are the standards that we should be expecting as we develop these systems and these new products. So we think that our role at Meta, we're uniquely positioned to be able to contribute to the research and understanding of what the risks are that this new emerging technology could introduce, and to help define what the best practices are for how to understand and address those risks. So our vision is to ensure that AI is used in a way that benefits society. And I'm specifically responsible for the fairness team, and our mission is to ensure that AI is developed in a way that it works well for all user groups and doesn't amplify societal biases. But we're really at the beginning of understanding this space. This is a field that started, 5 years ago, definitely less than 10. And we are we're in a really exciting time where I think we've made some progress on the key foundational identification of risks and potential risks. There's so many open questions, so much need for research and engineering development and understanding of how we're going to implement and define really those standards in practice and what the specific expectations should be on how we are holding ourselves and other technology companies accountable for how this technology impacts people. So our vision is is bold, and I think I just want to highlight that we're also in a space where we're in the early days of defining and understanding the space of risks, and so we expect that as we learn more, it will evolve and we'll become even more informed about what the risky areas are, where we should focus, and what our responsibilities will evolve into, and the best practices, what they will evolve into.
I'm honestly, so I'm listening to you talk and I'm thinking to myself about like how we've been hearing about AI for most of my life. I'm 36 and I think we started talking about it like I was like maybe 14 or 15. I started hearing the term. And so I think you're right. It sounds like a really interesting time for the field, but also, a bit scary, right? Because you're kind of feeling all of this out as you go because you're creating this technology and then trying to decide what the rules should be around it. But that sounds very, very exciting to be at that place or in a place where you can help direct some of those standards.
Yes.
When you talk about using that AI to combat bias, could you explain or expand a little bit more on that, and maybe talk about what types of biases that you've seen, or if there's any good examples that people can kind of relate to when you're talking about combating bias using AI or bias within AI?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the key concepts that we are thinking about is when we define, when we identify a machine learning system or a machine learning component, we want to make sure that it's meeting whatever kinds of standards that we have for performance, that it's meeting those standards for performance regardless of what group membership people might come from. One of the challenges that we have in understanding whether or not a system could be biased is the kinds of data that we might have associated with the training examples or the ways that we the sort of instances that the AI interacts with. We are really excited about a new program that we launched actually last week that will engage with Instagram users and allow them to offer the self-identified information about their race in order for us to be able to understand when we're building a machine learning system, is that machine learning system working well for people regardless of their self-identified race or ethnicity. So when we think about bias in AI, I think that's like one of the basic standards that we have is as we're developing this technology, we want to make sure that it's working well for everybody. Now, I think that's just the beginning of the conversation. I think when we talk about the rules and expectations, how to even specifically define what it means to meet that bar for performance, I think that's still in the research and understand phase. So there aren't even, in the external community or in the research community, well defined or broadly agreed upon specific definitions for how to define fairness in an AI system. Those are still being understood. And I think exactly what the right definition is will depend on the product that's being deployed and the specific cultural context that that it's being deployed in. The risks for bias are going to change depending on what groups are benefiting or potentially not benefiting from the product. And so I think our role, we are an interdisciplinary group, and I think we'll have a chance to talk more about that in a little bit. I think a big part of our role is understanding from the user perspective what are the potential harms, so that we can then really help define them and learn how to measure them.
Oh, I'm getting all kinds of like amazing ideas and amazing thoughts like listening to you. So I cannot wait for the next like 20 minutes after the session when I get to start Googling all of the things that you've talked about so I have more of an understanding. But this is like absolutely wonderful. Okay, so one of the big questions that comes up when we're talking about meta and AI, people always want to talk about the ability to spread disinformation, especially via platforms like Facebook. These things have had impacts on democratic elections around the world, and it's a question that's top of everybody's minds. So how does Meta resolve that responsible AI? How do you kind of place that in context with the fact that your platform can be used in certain ways by certain people?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are within the responsible AI team. I'll first say, we are a mission-driven team. I think that the people here are here because they're passionate about understanding how they can be a part of developing technology that's doing well by society, and that's our mission. Right? Our mission is to ensure that AI has a positive impact on society. And we are also one small group within, a very large company that has other organizations and teams responsible even more broadly for understanding and developing products that ensure we have a positive social impact. The integrity teams, I think, are the teams that have the core responsibility of defining appropriate policies, which include policies against misinformation, and then also developing the technology and processes to enforce them. So they're one of our key stakeholders that we work with to ensure that as those processes are being deployed, we and AI is a part of that enforcement process, that we can learn about the same risks that we talked about in the context more generally of fairness. Well, how do those apply to those integrity systems? So we work closely with them and work to understand what the relevant user concerns are related to fairness and what the best practices are for how to address those concerns. So I think it's the amazing thing about working at a company like Meta, and I'm sure many other people can relate at their own companies, is there's power in dividing and conquering. So within responsible AI, we have a lot of people who are passionate very broadly about sort of many different aspects of social impact. Fortunately, we do get to focus, and I think in that focus we are able to have more impact, and we rely then on our close partners and other teams like integrity and other social impact focused teams. Civic, there's organizations working on understanding civic impacts, to help them achieve their mission in a way that's consistent with our best practices.
Oh, that's amazing to hear. All right, so let's talk about how that work happens. When you're talking about having stakeholders and engineering teams work hand in hand to make that responsible AI a reality, what does that look like in practice?
Yeah, so it looks a lot like this. It's, little faces on Zoom right now. It's people connecting, agreeing on things, bringing together ideas, brainstorming, identifying priorities, finding resources to execute on those priorities. And so I think so much of it is, the familiar process of business as usual, but with the added stakes of knowing that we're having a huge impact on the world and have a huge responsibility to deliver products that are going to really help people. So we carry that responsibility, and I think people are really passionate about it. But at the end of the day, it is, we're in the product development space, and so it is, it's people coming together and then builders deploying and creating things.
Very, very cool. All right. So let's take a step back and look more broadly, at Meta as a company. Can you tell us a little bit about what the culture is like? A lot of people wanted to know things like what keeps you coming back. For me, I like to ask, what's the one thing that you have at Meta that you do not like, you will not leave because you don't think you'll find that anyplace else? Let's start with the culture. What is the culture like to you?
So I think there's been a piece of the culture that I've seen. I've been with the company. Actually, I started as an intern in 2014. So I've been with the company for, if you count from then, for like over 8 years. And I think it still has retained this sort of bottoms up grassroots spirit of builders. I think the ability for anyone to bring an idea and build a prototype and prove out the impact, that is still, I think, like part and parcel with who we are as a company. I think there's also been, we've shifted towards having much clearer processes and sort of accountability for prioritization. So of course some things have shifted over the last 8 years as the company's grown so tremendously. But I think that that real that grassroots ability for people to bring ideas and pitch things and engage in hackathons is such a healthy manifestation of just being, part of a human team where, it's not, there's no sense of, you're not in the right role. Like, who are you to be pitching an idea or, proposing something, right? There's just an authentic respect, I think, for each employee and each person who's in a team. And I really value that aspect of feeling like I'm appreciated and respected, and as a manager, having that be a big part of the team culture that I try to foster.
That's wonderful. And I think you're right. That is not necessarily something that people would expect from a huge international company. So I think that's wonderful to hear. Now, one of the things we wanted to talk about is, because Meta is such a big organization, y'all bundle so many different initiatives under one roof. Now, because of this number of opportunities, I want to know from you, do they tend to work on many different projects like throughout the year, or would somebody be more likely to find themselves assigned to one project for a longer period of time?
Yeah, I think it's definitely the former, that people are working on many different projects. Like, I think, of course, there's exceptions. We also have long-term projects, right? So it's rare that you'll find one person owning one project and that's their exclusive focus for years upon years, depending on how you define scope. I think there is, because of that bottoms up culture, people really can own, their own ideas and vision. But we are, I think also fluid in moving people to high priority projects when there's an opportunity to have more impact, and pausing things. And so there's, I think, but there is just a lot of collaboration, and I think because of that, you have people engaged in, usually several different projects.
Makes sense. And I think that that probably balances out, the differences in opinion between like whether people like long projects or short. But I love that it's not just based on, well, this is how we do things. It's more like, well, this is an opportunity. So like if this is something that you want to take advantage of or something you want to be a part of, okay, great. Let's, shuffle around and see how that can be achieved. So I think that's wonderful. That's really, really awesome.
Yeah, I think the focus is always impact, right? And so if we're not focused on impact, then what are we doing? And I think the the subtlety becomes in understanding also how to assess risk and distributed risk to enable also long-term impact and take on projects that may not have impact that manifests, in a 1 quarter or half a year, but may take, 5 years to manifest impact. How do you assess sort of and keep on going when you don't have that immediate payoff? And I think um, we have best practices for how to enable people to get those signals, hold people accountable, but also take the time to invest in longer term initiatives, because these are really challenging problems, right? So we don't solve, and we won't solve, responsible AI over the next few years. We need the runway, but also um, the the milestones to understand that we're making the progress that we need to make.
Yeah. Oh, there's tons of love in the chat for what you're saying right now. A lot of people, let's see, where is this? Ron had said measuring success in multi-year efforts is really great to hear. We also had a question that came from the chat earlier. Not sure if you are okay to share this or not. This person had wanted to know what sort of measures, OKRs or KPIs. So something key results and key performance indicators. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Which
Objectives, key results, and key performance.
Thank you. Objectives. I knew I couldn't remember the first one. Thank you. So this person wanted to know what sort of metrics do you add in, into your team to reach that common goal? How does one measure lessened bias or positive social impact? Could you expand on that a little bit for us?
Yeah, I think I won't go into like the super specific metrics, but we absolutely, yeah, we use key results to track our success and our progress, to track our progress to goals. I think it, like, as with any product development, we need measurable goals, and goals that are as tightly attached to the spirit of what success looks like. And so we have a very rigorous road mapping process that we go through several times a year, to really understand what are the priorities, what does success look like, what are we trying to achieve, and define very specific metrics associated with sort of each work stream and deliverable, to ensure that we're able to hold ourselves accountable and that we're held accountable to getting where we need to go. Those kinds of key results tracking, I think, really help enable a team to run, right? And especially in a space like this, where there are so many open questions still on how to define fairness and how to like, what are the right metrics. We find just having very specific goals associated with project deliverables has been really helpful in allowing people to then, kind of at some point detach from those broader questions and execute for, the period, while then also engaging, continuously, especially with leadership, in understanding that those goals still do reflect what the success state should be.
Excellent. Okay. Now we got another question. I don't think we're going to be able to strictly address this one because it was it was prefaced with this is a philosophical question, so we might not be able to dive in entirely. But this question sparked something for me, and I think it will for you too. This person wanted to know, how do we know our engineers' understanding of bias is as objective as it can be? So could you talk a little bit about what that, like, do y'all have inherent bias training? Like what happens in your team to either evaluate this kind of, status within your team members, or to keep educating and keep, informing people so that y'all's understanding is progressed together?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great question. And I think philosophically, I can answer like, I think, what is objectivity? But I want to make sure we're on the same page about like who we're talking about on the team and what the responsibility and accountability is. So it's not just engineers who are baking in without accountability their definition of bias. We're a cross-disciplinary team, and we also engage extensively with the external world outside of Meta. So we work closely with civil society and stakeholders in regulatory roles, and do extensive user research to understand user concerns related to bias. All that data is really so essential to helping us understand what are the user problems, how do they manifest in data, and how can we define what more appropriate goals should be, and what we would want a healthy algorithmic system to look like. But again, all of that's still evolving, and so I think the process that we're using is to break the bubble at every possible opportunity and be very transparent and open, with within the company, which is a very has like a huge number of diverse stakeholders. We have a civil rights team, and get extensive feedback from people on whether or not the ways that we're defining expectations sufficiently capture the user harms that people are concerned with, and how to de-risk them and address them. So it certainly goes beyond sort of engineers coming up with a definition of bias, but instead is a multidisciplinary team with engineers, researchers, data scientists, product people, designers, ethicists, lawyers, policymakers. And that's just within like the core working group, not to mention sort of all the other product developers and stakeholders and external folks that we use. And so that sort of gets to, it's not just the engineers, but what is objective? I think that is, we need to get, I think, very specific when we talk about fairness concerns and bias concerns, and really think about what is the user harm that is at, potentially risked in a given product, in the way that actually interacts with society and people. And we don't think that there will be sort of one uber fairness metric that can address sort of every product or AI system that Meta produces, but instead that we should really look at, what are the impacts of this product on people? What are we seeing in the data, and how can we address those concerns?
Great. Okay. Let's instead of pulling back, let's go a little bit more granular when it comes to the team. A lot of people wanted to know about the background required to work in, AI research science, product development, product management, that kind of thing when it comes to AI. Do you need to have an engineering background to work in these areas?
Great build on from the last question. No, you don't need to have an engineering background to work in these areas. There's certainly some very specific roles, and I think in the job description, in the slides, we highlighted a couple of them that are focused on, you know, engineering contributions. And of course, you'd need an engineering background to jump into those roles. Um, we have, you know, some of my closest partners and like incredibly invaluable contributions on the team come from people who are program managers or product managers who don't necessarily have an engineering background, and that's not the contribution that we expect from them. Instead, you know, we need to understand how to actually implement and affect change in the company and influence the industry. And I think that, that bringing together those human pieces, understanding the strategy that we're going to use to affect change and achieve our goals, those are central to, you know, I think other functions and skill sets such as product management and program management, not to mention design or user research, which are, you know, which are also sort of not engineering roles and yet so essential to the team and being able to understand what user risks are and how we're going to design solutions that address the problems that we're identifying.
All of this is excellent. There's tons of people chiming in the chat here, so this is absolutely wonderful. And I think that you know, that kind of raises a couple other great questions that people had, you know, regarding project management. So can you talk and expand a little bit about the role that project management plays in AI and machine learning?
Yeah, so I think on, you know, in its sort of canonical form, like project management is how ideas can become clarified and organized, um, and what enables us to, instead of working as, you know, individuals who can only each do so much, but allows us to amplify impact by coordinating as a team and ensuring that the team is focused on one larger goal that, you know, any individual wouldn't be able to accomplish themselves. So I think the product management brings us together and is sort of glue that holds and allows a group of people who are building something to know that they're, you know, allows the left arm to talk with the right arm. We also, I think, when I was reflecting on the question earlier on what do I love about Meta and the point around, you know, the bottoms up culture, I think there is an aspect of this work where, like, everybody have a role, like, hey, I'm an engineering manager and you're a project manager and this person's a research scientist and this person's a designer, and that with that comes, you know, the specific job expectations that you have in your role. And I think there, you know, everyone is a voice in the room who has something to contribute to, I think, understanding the risks and the strategies. I think because we're working in a space that's sort of something that people are here because they are passionate about the mission that we're responsible for executing on and achieving. And so, you know, I think project management, and as much as any other role or skill or expertise, needs to be a part of that conversation and is a part of that conversation.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk a little more broadly, just a little bit at least. What does the meta opportunity landscape look like for you know, for people who maybe are not a couple of years into their careers? I'm thinking like recent graduates, people who are more senior along the line. You know, what does that look like for people who might be applying to Meta with a background like that?
Yes, absolutely. So we have people at, I think, every stage of their career. So we have people who are graduating from their undergraduate degree in computer science, and this is their first job out of college as a software engineer. We have people coming into program management who don't necessarily have a degree or expertise in that area, and are sort of just starting out. And then we have very senior roles for company leaders and thought leaders to affect change the scope of an entire industry. And so I think that goes, to a level of even then beyond mine. And we then have everything in between. So I think there's some specific roles where, as a research scientist, you're expected to have a PhD in order to sort of fill that role. And then others in software engineering where there may be not a specific degree requirement, but years of experience requirement as an engineer. And then we have, I think, also a need as the program grows to we hire people, and then we also, of course, are and me as a manager, in the business of growing and allowing people to grow in their careers. So I think that kind of growth mindset is the cap I'm wearing always. And one of the things I love about being a manager is that one of my core responsibilities is to help people find opportunities to grow and take on more scope and develop new skills. So that's, I think, we hire at all levels, and then we grow people to all levels.
Excellent. Very, very good to hear. And I think that that's a really great question, a really great thing to talk about, because we did have another question in the chat thread, kind of piggybacking off what you said about PhD holders. This person had asked if you have any thoughts on how a PhD in a science like neuroscience could be applied within this space at Meta. They had also asked, is it absolutely necessary to have a PhD to in order to get into the research science space at Meta, which you kind of covered a little bit at the end of your last answer. But what, would something like a degree in neuroscience be useful for Meta, or is that maybe a little bit far off the beaten path from what skills or what backgrounds y'all need at the moment?
I think two answers. So I think neuroscience isn't the special expertise that the team we're talking about here today is hiring for. It's funny, I think we actually recently hired someone with exactly that expertise. And so that's I think in the sciences especially, you saw my background was in physics and math. I used to study astrophysics. So those skills are so valuable, but that's not what I'm doing here. I'm not using that specific subject matter expertise, but I think the basic framework for how to engage in scientific research and use data to inform decisions is what's transferable. So I think if we're talking about neuroscience and responsible AI, I think those yes, those skills are relevant, but sort of more in the meta sense of scientific and data science relevance, and it would be a bit of a shift. Now I want to make sure that I don't sort of do wrong by my other colleagues at Meta who may actually be looking for people with specific neuroscience expertise. And I won't speak. I won't speak to a specific role that I have in mind, but I bet there are teams that are looking for people with that specific expertise if you wanted to continue leveraging and developing that subject matter. But I think we need to follow up to find exactly what those roles or programs were.
Yeah, please. And if you, I lost the comment in the chat thread here, so I'll try and get back to it. But if you were the person that shared this question, please feel free, connect with the Meta personnel who are on the call right now. We have at least one Meta hiring recruiter who is in the chat as well. So I very much encourage you to reach out there. All right, let's talk about what it means to be getting into kind of some of these positions. A lot of people wanted to know how to get into a research scientist position in contrast to something like an engineering position. So could you talk about what that path would look like?
Yeah, so the AI research scientist role is has the expectation that you're going to be contributing to and developing state of the art in AI. And so for responsible AI, that means helping to define what those standards are for responsibility, depending on which pillar of responsible AI we're focused on. I focused primarily on fairness today, but we have a number of other pillars that are in a similar stage of needing to both have foundational understand work done and also think about developing best practices for mitigation. So there is the expectation to have those research skills to really push us and advance and develop novel ideas and make novel connections between risks and data and solutions. So I think the expectation is that someone's completed a PhD and that's the sort of training that allows you to develop and formulate those research skills. The software engineering focus is, I think, more on technical contributions in coding and architecting systems and developing products that are built to scale and can be agile in how they're serving users. So that research science versus engineering role, there's also there's definitely like an overlap. The research scientist role does have coding requirements associated with it, so you do have to take some coding interviews, but I think the focus is more on really understanding the process and best practices for developing state-of-the-art work.
Great. Okay. Let's talk about some of the backgrounds and the required skills, that kind of thing. A lot of people had wanted to know if it was possible to apply if you don't have prior experience in AI or machine learning, but you do have experience in software engineering. What would your opinion be on this?
Yes, absolutely. We have people who are come to the team without experience in machine learning, who are developing products or responsible for data analysis or data engineering or program management. I think the scale of the effort is such that we really think about dividing and conquering and how to leverage a team with diverse skill sets. So we don't expect every person to wear the AI expert hat. We expect people to be able to ramp up on having conversations and understand the space of that. But that's something that we can help people do. And I think reality, I think many people who are on the team do come to the team with some AI experience, but we also, because that's the nature of the self-selection, and people who have that experience and understanding of AI are going to be more passionate about our area or appreciate the mission more. So I want to paint an honest picture of the skills that are on the team, but we do also see people thriving who are just ramping up on the AI piece, but have a lot to offer in other subject matter areas where they're already experts.
Okay. Now I have one more question kind of in this same area. A lot of people had questions about the opportunity to switch between tech stacks. like being back end to AI or machine learning or to AR or VR. So what does that kind of flexibility or fluidity look like at Meta? Is that a possibility for people?
Yeah, it is. So in the engineering roles, we do have processes that allow people to focus and to gauge their specific specialties and focus their careers and developing the specialty that they want to and that the company needs them to. We also have an incredible internal mobility program that allows people, after they've been on the team and having impact in their space for some period of time, you're able to transfer. And I think that those internal mobility decisions are made with the understanding that you'll be able to contribute, of course, in your new role. But I support a lot of on-the-job training and ramp up, and see people switching to new areas and learning the new subject matter expertise that they might need in that new area, while also then counting on them to leverage the experience that they already have. So we see people switching across those stacks. Now, there's some like reasonable timeline on which it becomes inefficient to just switch, through just in the same sense of with external programs, you want to have, there's a pragmatic limitation on like job hopping that's not practical. But I think when those decisions are well thought out and align well with the goals of the person, and I have the understanding that they're part of helping that person achieve their goals, and that they allow us to then allow someone to develop skills that the business needs them to have. That's a win-win for the business. I think is one of the wonderful things about one of the strengths of the Meta's engineering culture has been that that internal mobility, and it allows us to be more responsive to the changing market as different subject matter skill sets are needed. We can then grow people and ramp them up to new emerging technologies.
I think that's so wonderful. And it really leads us into our next question too. We wanted to talk a little bit about, that career progression within Meta. A lot of people had written in with kind of very specific asks of like, what's it look like from A to B or G to D or, whichever. Oh God, that's not even in order. Lord, sorry, y'all. English is rough for me today, which is bad when it's the only language you speak. Oh, so let's talk about what that career progression would look like in a broad sense. People wanted to know about, staying an individual contributor or moving on into management. They wanted to know, what it would look like to advance if you started as a principal research manager. So people are referencing like very specific job roles. But when it comes to that progression, let's kind of talk a little bit about what that looks like. Is this, something that's encouraged within Meta? Is it also supported with, formal processes for that kind of career movement? What does this look like as a Meta employee?
Yeah, absolutely. I could share actually my personal story on this. So I joined Meta first as an intern, but then once I joined as a full-time employee, I was an intern during my PhD. So then once I joined as a full-time employee, I was an individual contributor, a research scientist. And after about a year and a half, there was the opportunity and the need to start a team focused on this space. It actually had a different name when we first started it, but that's okay. There wasn't. We were very focused on fairness, and there was a need for the manager and the team, and that was something that I was interested in doing, and I had the opportunity in the prior years to, while I wasn't directly managing anybody, had the opportunity to tech lead projects, put together roadmaps, review those roadmaps, define goals, and so had the opportunity to start building those skills and testing, whether or not that was a role that I enjoyed or loved doing, and so when I actually made the transition to manager, another thing that I really love about the way that they've structured the roles is it's not a promotion, it's a lateral switch. So there's no comp change. It's a decision that you make with with your manager and with HR. If there's a business need and we think there's a skill fit with the employee, then you can laterally transition, and just take on a different set of responsibilities and set aside the individual contributor responsibilities because of it being sort of a lateral shift that you can make with that alignment from your manager and your HR partners. I think it's a very important business decision that people, that we're putting the right people into manager roles that allow them to grow and grow a team and allow their teams to thrive. You need to have a healthy management, but it also means that it's not like when it's not a good fit for people, they can also laterally transition back. And so, again, we don't want to have people hopping back and forth all the time. That's not in their best interest or the business's best interest. But there is that flexibility because it isn't an upwards promotion with comp change. It's not that there's no going back. So I think that's a bit more on the mechanics of how it works. I think in terms of how it works in practice, I think for people on my team that I've transitioned to managers, and also for people that have chosen to transition back to ICs from being managers, it's really a question of what do you love doing on a day-to-day basis? What keeps you coming back to work? What kinds of activities or contributions do you find satisfying and gratifying? And so I think that's something that you can only learn through experience. And sometimes, you can learn that through experience as a tech lead or, through mentoring other people. And then when it comes to making the choice, it's a mutual decision-making based on coaching that you get from your career, from your manager, to help decide, is this the right career choice for me, and is there a business need?
Yeah. Oh, thank you kind of for diving in on that, because you're right. The mechanics are important, but it's also really great to hear that, this is something that is supported, that is, possible within Meta. All right, we only have a couple minutes left, but I just wanted to take a little bit of time to talk a little bit more about Meta. Now, what you're looking at in front of you are some questions that we had posed to Isabel prior to today's session. And I think things like, things about like why you love working at Meta honestly have become very clear as we've been talking through today's session. I want to talk about your top tips for someone who first joins the team. So if somebody is new at Meta, what do you think is the most important thing for them to know?
Yeah, I think I emphasize here the focus on impact. I think with such a large company, and working on an area like social responsibility, I think I see people sometimes overwhelmed by the number of concerns that they might personally have or that they see, and so I think we have to ruthlessly prioritize and understand how can we solve them, solve the most important and most impactful problems and make progress against our strategy, and working with your team to really understand what that strategy is and why one project over another might have more impact in what we're trying to achieve over another, and really getting into understanding why are we working on this? Why does this align with the company goals and the team's goals, which are aligned with, I think, the spirit of what people are passionate about in our team, which is building AI that has a positive impact on society. So getting into why is that the mission, and why are we using the strategic plan and prioritization that we're using so that we can work on the most impactful problems.
Okay. I do see we've got a lot of people in chat chiming in about channel not found, trying to join the community space. Totally get it, y'all. I'm trying to work on getting you a better channel or a better link for that. It also might be a little bit of a confusion issue because you do have to register for the community space. It's not as arduous as setting up a Power to Fly profile. It is just another button you have to click, though. You do have to sign up for a profile with the community space since they are separate platforms. Apologies for the confusion. I do want to highlight that these are some of the hiring opportunities that Meta is especially interested in filling. I'm putting the links into the group chat right now. There's one link for each one of those roles. So as I send those into the group chat, please feel free to check those out if you would like. I do want to make sure that we're ending on time. I know we're a minute late, but Isabel, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. This has been very illuminating to get to learn more about what machine learning looks like, especially at a giant company like Meta. And really, really interesting to hear about the direction and the care y'all take with your team and how seriously you take this subject. So thank you so much for joining us. It's been really, really wonderful to get to learn from you today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed the questions and the opportunity to connect with you, and look forward to hearing any follow-ups or feedback that people have on the discussion.
Yeah, excellent. People asking for questions, asking questions about where they can find the recording. Will the chat transcript be available? The transcript won't be, at least not from us. But there is closed captioning as part of the features on this video. And everybody that registered is going to get an email in about 1 to 2 business days from Power to Fly, and it'll send you a link to where you can rewatch the recording. So thank you so much for asking all those questions, y'all. If this has been your first Power to Fly event, I just want to say thank you so much. We're so happy to have met you. I hope that we'll see you on many more events in the future. If you are one of our frequent flyers and we see you all the time, welcome back. It is always great for me to see familiar faces. Thank you all for your time, your amazing participation, all those great questions. I cannot wait to join all of you for our next fabulous Power to Fly chat and learn event. Have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday, safe, happy, healthy, and I hope we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.